Have you ever noticed how cruel narcissists become when you are kind? Why do they seem to be even meaner on special occasions like anniversaries, Christmas, and your birthday? Why do they increase their cruelty when you're upset over something sentimental, especially if it involves the loss of someone close to you? It boils down to their disdain for the empathy they observe, but cannot experience themselves. It's rooted in their belief that displaying soft emotions is a sign of weakness. They convince themselves that those who show vulnerability are insincere and therefore deserve to be diminished. In their eyes, your kindness is a flaw that requires correction, and your perceived weakness needs to be eradicated. The narcissist learned from childhood that feelings of security were naive and vulnerable. They developed a defense mechanism to shield themselves from trauma by shutting off their empathy, reserving it solely for themselves. They firmly believe that they alone are deserving of empathy. Although they can exhibit cognitive empathy when recalling the empathy they yearned for as children, they struggle to genuinely empathize with others. The child narcissist desperately sought authentic attention that never materialized, leading them to lose faith in its existence. Alternatively, an excess of attention during childhood could instill a distorted sense of self-importance, creating its own form of trauma. Either way, the child narcissist learned that attention and validation need not be genuine, finding gratification in both positive and negative attention. They become adept at manipulating situations to garner attention and praise at any cost. This newfound translation of attention becomes their lifeline, akin to a hardcore addiction. Being cruel to those who show kindness becomes a means of self-preservation, a preemptive defense against future disappointments. However, this emotional detachment comes at the expense of disregarding the emotions and kindness of others. When victims offer empathy and kindness, it serves as a tool for the narcissist to break them down, revealing their true selves as damaged, hollow, and hurting. By exerting control over their victims' emotions and shattering their once tender hearts, the narcissist perceives it as a sacrifice to their internal deity, their own ego. Regardless of where they fall on the spectrum, narcissists share the same core ideologies, which accounts for their similar energy. They uniformly perceive kindness as weakness and find it draining to exhibit. Kindness appears profoundly insincere in their eyes. Emotions like kindness, joy, and a sense of security are foreign concepts to narcissists. Our displays of these emotions are viewed as self-righteous, particularly the exaggerated emotions typical individuals express during times of grief or celebration. Witnessing someone else's grief is unbearable for a narcissist, provoking anger because they cannot empathize. Soft emotions are dismissed by narcissists who perceive those who express them as flawed and weak. Narcissists attempt to correct people's emotions by devaluing them, aiming to elicit what they perceive as genuine emotions reflected back at them. Genuine emotions such as insecurity, sadness, and emptiness are what narcissists can relate to, and they expect others to feel the same. Beyond lacking empathy, narcissists fundamentally reject the concept, viewing empathy as a weakness that needs correction and should be reserved solely as an emotion directed towards themselves. In public, many narcissists strive to maintain a facade of kindness and caring to uphold a positive image. Victims often cling to the belief that the narcissist they love couldn't possibly be as cruel as their actions suggest, based on the charming persona they were initially presented with. Despite their false promises of change and minimal efforts, Victims interpret any semblance of improvement as genuine progress. The cycle of hope and disappointment with narcissists becomes addictive, triggering the release of dopamine akin to the thrill of gambling, with both parties yearning for a favorable outcome. The narcissist relies on being the irresistible gambling machine that their victims cannot resist playing. Narcissists ensure that their sources of supply feel the wrath for displaying kindness towards them or others. Similar to the varying potencies of drugs, narcissistic supply comes in different intensities, and the more control, attention, and devastation they cause, the more pleasurable it is for them. This is why occasions like Christmas, birthdays, and anniversaries are reserved for such indulgences. The narcissist escalates their toxic behaviors to elicit heightened devastation from you, providing them with high-grade narcissistic supply. The same principle applies when the primary source of narcissistic supply experiences grief or sentimental feelings towards another. The narcissist becomes more cruel in order to receive potent fuel, anticipating more dramatic reactions from you, which only serves to fuel their ego further. Any indication that an event or grief is deemed more important than the narcissist themselves results in narcissistic injury, as it challenges their perceived importance and superiority. A significant experience with Nex, my narcissistic ex-boyfriend, was hosting a birthday party for him at my home. We shared mutual friends since childhood, and amidst the fragility of the pandemic, I offered my home as a venue when he struggled to find a location. Reflecting back, it seems likely that he intentionally guided me towards this decision to exploit my kindness. On the day of the party, while I was busy decorating with his mother and others, he arrived with a female friend whom he didn't bother introducing, claiming we were all too busy, then left with her supposedly for her to drive him to work. Later, when I offered to pick him up from work, he callously responded with, "Don't you have nothing else to do?" His words deeply wounded me, but I brushed them off, attributing his behavior to stress from preparing for his party. However, things took a darker turn during the party. Before it even began, Nex and his mother accused me of deliberately ruining his cake, which had deflated overnight, an accusation I denied, but felt so much shame. Throughout the event, he ignored me, preferring the company of the same woman, and at one point sent his girlfriend to assign me menial tasks like fetching toilet roll, adding to the day's surreal atmosphere. Discovering them in my children's bedroom, his laughter at my distress was the breaking point. Overwhelmed, I retreated to my bedroom and fell asleep from mental exhaustion. At the party's end, Nex coldly bid me good night and left with her. This experience, compounded by past narcissistic abuse, triggered not only suicidal thoughts, but also the recurrence of a cyst in my chest that always flares up when I'm under severe emotional stress. The next day, when confronted about the presence of the girlfriend at the party, Nex accused me of lacking the courage to question him during the event. His anger flared when I mentioned others had noticed the woman he was with and inquired about her identity. He accused me of talking behind his back, becoming angrier than I had ever seen him. Despite my attempts to explain, he refused to listen and abruptly ended our relationship, leaving me shattered. 2 weeks later, he resumed the cycle of abuse by hoovering me up, calling as if nothing had happened and donning the mask of charm and affection that I had come to love. His cruelty during the party stemmed from his disdain for what he perceived as my excessive kindness in allowing him to use my home. Prior to this shocking display, I had never witnessed this side of him. The weeks leading up to the party were characterized by love bombing, compliments, outings, and extensive quality time, both in person and over the phone. Looking back, I now realize that I was merely a wrapped-up birthday gift, providing him with his desired dose of narcissistic supply. His audacity reached new heights when he requested that myself, the woman he had used to triangulate me, and his own mother serve as waiters at his party, reveling in the control and power dynamics of the situation. Narcissists adeptly mirror their victims' behavior, especially their kindness, during both the love-bombing and hoovering phases. This mimicry serves to manipulate the victim's emotions while temporarily satisfying the narcissist's need for validation. However, as the narcissist grows bored and seeks new sources of narcissistic supply, the victim's kindness loses its allure. Once the narcissist believes they have secured the victim's trust, they test this belief by exhibiting contradictory behavior, devaluing the victim to gauge their reaction and amplifying their own narcissistic supply. Subsequently, the victim is often discarded, only to be hoovered back into the narcissist's orbit as a means of maintaining control over their emotions. The cycle of abuse is ingrained in the narcissist's character, with higher spectrum narcissists being particularly conscious of their manipulative tactics. They understand that by presenting a false mask of kindness and empathy, it becomes more difficult for victims to recognize and accept their true nature when the mask eventually slips, especially if the victim is emotionally invested in the narcissist. Narcissists exploit people's generous nature to deceive them, ultimately seeking complete control over their victims' emotions. This manipulation reinforces the narcissist's belief that all individuals are easily manipulated, confirming their delusional sense of grandiosity and superiority. To narcissists, kindness is unappealing and generally inappropriate unless it's solicited by them and for their benefit. In their perspective, their harsh reactions are completely justified. As their victims undergo devaluation and discarding, narcissists find themselves attracted to them anew. The individual singled out by the narcissist as a primary source of narcissistic supply is engulfed in a narcissistic fog, becoming consumed with trying to decipher the narcissist's inconsistent behavior. They obsess over why the narcissist has changed and devote themselves to satisfying the narcissist's sense of entitlement, seeking validation. Being chosen as the primary source of narcissistic supply, the victim is expected to feel thankful for this role, a mindset stemming from the narcissist's immature and skewed viewpoint that the victim's kindness warrants such punitive treatment. The primary source is expected to mirror the narcissist's true, desolate self, embodying the very essence of their misery and soullessness. This mirroring is what leads to the profound breakdown of the victim in a long-term relationship with a narcissist. When the victim no longer recognizes who they are, only reflecting the narcissist's true self, they are entirely subdued and deemed conquered. Victims who have experienced a narcissistic parent from a young age are particularly vulnerable, as they might never have developed a sense of self, making them the ideal candidate for the narcissist's primary supply. If you're the primary source of supply for a narcissist, they seek to dictate your happiness and sorrow. Any emotions expressed beyond their manipulation trigger narcissistic injury and rage. The narcissist from childhood found solace in detaching from their own emotions and mastered manipulating others' feelings for survival. By dominating their victims' emotions, they eliminate any emotional threats, especially those emotions they are incapable of feeling themselves. To them, these emotions don't exist and, if not managed, pose the greatest risk. Narcissistic supply, or fuel, operates in the brain similarly to a Class A drug addiction, serving as the very air a narcissist breathes. They understand that the more a person returns to them, the more potent the fuel becomes. In long-term relationships with a narcissist, the greater your kindness, the crueler their treatment becomes, seeking an enhanced high. A person's confusion, loss of self, and increasing sadness become addictive to the narcissist. Their goal isn't to destroy you. Destruction is merely a byproduct of the fuel they require for survival. They feed on you like a vampire until, saturated, they must seek a new supply. When you're completely depleted, resorting to grey rocking due to stress, mental health issues, or illnesses, they will discard you. When you can offer no more kindness, become emotionally numb, and provide minimal benefits, the narcissist will unhesitatingly replace you with a new primary source of supply.